Hi love, welcome back. This is a part 2 of our wavy cutout dress. If you are new to the channel, my name is Miss Ayi and you're welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you my love, thank you darling, thank you baby for always coming back. Let's get right into class. We ended with the top and this is how your work should be looking like, and now we are going to continue. To continue, you are going to take your white yarn and you are going to attach it at the last stitch, on top of the last stitch, and we are going to wrap our white yarn around the metal ring. So if your metal ring is bigger or smaller than mine, you are going to do the same exact thing, but make sure if your metal hook is smaller, make sure you're wrapping around the metal ring. Your stitches should be 19. That's if you have a small ring, and if you have a bigger ring, make sure your stitches are more than 19. So in my case, I had 23. I did 23 stitches, and I'm going to show you how to decrease to get your 19 stitches to start working with. So you're going to turn your work. I had 23 stitches wrapping around, so I'm going to slip stitch 2 times into the first and second stitch, and I'll do the same exact thing at the end too. So let's say you had more stitch, just slip stitch at both sides and leave 19 in the middle. So now that I have 19 in the middle, I'm going to go ahead and make single crochets in each stitch, in each of the 19 stitches, until I have my 19 complete, and I shall make my 2 slip stitches at the last end of the row. At the end of the row, after you've made 2 slip stitches at the last end, you are going to slip stitch on top of your chain 4 space and to close off your work, and you should be having something like this. To begin our pattern, you are going to turn your work and slip stitch inside the first stitch, because that is where we are going to begin our work, not at the slip stitch space, and you are going to chain 4. Chain 4 count as your first treble crochet. You are going to place 4 more trebles inside the same stitch, making it 5 treble crochets inside the same space. After your 5 treble crochets inside the same space, just as we were doing, the pattern has not changed. Now inside the very first stitch, you are going to make your first treble crochet. You are going to skip 1, make your second treble, skip 1, make your second treble again. So we are going to make 9 individual treble crochets, and at the end you should be left with your last stitch, and we are going to place 5 treble crochets inside the same stitch. So if you have not seen the part 1 of the video, please go and watch before you come to this part so you would understand the pattern. So at the end of the row, you are going to place your 5 treble inside the same space, and you are going to chain 1. So this is row 1, and you are going to turn your work. Row 2 again is back loop single crochet. So you're going to make back loop single crochet in each stitch until the end of the row. So it's a repeat row of this row 1 and 2. So you're going to make back post single crochet until the end of the row. At the end of the row, now we are going to be chaining. You're going to be making our long chain. So take your hip measurements and make a long chain, but the chain should be in a multiples of 19. So already I have 19, so I'm going to make 133 chains. So in total, plus the 19 at the front, would be 152. To break it down, if you're making for a size small, consider making 114 chains. If you're making for a size medium to large, consider making 133 chains. And if you are making for a size extra large, consider making 152 chains. After the chain, you are going to slip stitch at the very first stitch of the other side of your work, and you're going to cut and fasten your yarn. You should be having something like this now, and to proceed we are going to be dividing the chain space, only the chain, into two. So I made 133 chains, so if I'm dividing it into two, I would have 66.5. so let's say 66, right? So you're going to divide your work, and I'm making it 66 because I'm going to put my last cluster in one stitch, because I have an odd number, but if you get an even number, that's fine. So now I place my stitch marker to divide the very middle, so this is my 66 stitch, and now we are going to start working our row 1 of the main work. So you're going to attach your yarn, so I'm switching to my blue, and attach and chain 4. Chain 4 count as your first treble, and you're going to put 4 more treble crochets in the same space, making it 5 treble crochets. So this is 3, 4, and the last one, 5. So now we are going to start making our 9 individual treble crochet. So inside the first stitch, you are going to place your first individual treble, and you are going to skip 1. In the next stitch, you are going to place your second individual treble. So this is 2. You're going to skip a stitch, place your third one, and you're going to do this until you have 9 individual treble crochet. And the stitch right after the 9th one, we are going to put cluster again, and cluster is 5 treble crochets in the same stitch. So I've worked around, and this is exactly the pattern as we started. Nothing has changed. That's why I would advise you go and watch the part 1 so you would understand the pattern, and you keep working with that way. It will be more easy for you to understand and work your rules. So we are making cluster of treble crochets in 2 stitches, and we make 9 individual trebles. We make cluster, we make 9 individual trebles, and we are going to alternate. We are going to go around this until the end of the row. As you're working your first row, one thing you have to put in mind is make sure your chain is not turned, make sure your chain is not 10, and keep working your cluster and individual treble crochets, cluster, individual trebles, and you're going to repeat this until the end of the row. So we are working in rounds now, and the same as you did for the other side, you are going to do the same. You're going to just repeat this around until the end of the row. At the end of the row, you are going to place your, so this is my 9 trebles, and this is the other side of the chains. And after the 9 treble, you are going to put your cluster, and cluster is 5 treble crochets in the same stitch, and again you make 5 double crochets in the next stitch. At the end of the row, you are going to place your last cluster. So inside the last stitch, you are going to put your 5 treble crochets inside the same stitch, and 2, 3, 4, and 5. After your last cluster, you are going to slip stitch at the top of your chain 4 space. You're going to chain 1. This is row 1 of your work. You're going to chain 1, and you're going to make single crochet front loop inside each stitch, and you don't have to turn your work, but before, just watch the direction of the waves. If they are all aligning, if it's not aligning, then you turn your work and make your single crochet front loop only. But if they are aligning, you don't have to. The only thing is that your wave should be at your front side, or the first part of what we already worked should align with the second part. And how you would see the alignment is by the waves. So just make sure all the wave are in the same, or is the fronts, and they are matching each other. So I'm going to go ahead and make my single crochet front loop only in each stitch, and at the end of the row you are just going to slip stitch. So go ahead and work your single crochets, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. At the end of the row, you are going to slip stitch, and that's the end of row 2. Now row 1 and 2 is a repeat. We are going to be repeating, and just place your work down to make sure your panels are aligning. So that's the wave, and is at the right side, meaning you are on track and you can go ahead and start working your rows. So as you can see, my waves are aligning. So row 3, you are going to chain 4. Chain 4 count as your first treble, and you are going to turn your work. And inside the same space, you are going to make 4 treble crochets, 3 and 4, making it 5 trebles because your chain 4 count as a treble crochet, your first treble. Inside the next stitch, you are going to place your individual treble inside the very next stitch, and that is 1. So you are going to skip 1, place your treble. So the individual treble is 9. You're going to make 9 individual trebles. And after the 9 individual trebles, you are going to make your cluster, and your cluster is 5 treble crochets in the same stitch. In the next stitch again, you are going to make your cluster, and that's 5 treble crochets in the same stitch. And you continue with your individual trebles, 9 individual trebles. The first one is always at the very next stitch after your treble, and now you're going to skip 1, make your second treble, skip 1, make your third treble, skip a stitch, make your fourth treble until you have 9 treble crochets. After the 9 treble, you are going to work your cluster again. That is 5 treble crochets in the next 2 stitches. Go around, and at the end of the row, we shall meet and slip stitch. So now you are going to slip stitch at the top of your chain 4 space and chain 1. And now we are going to make our single crochets, front loop only, in each stitch until the end of the row. So this is what you are going to be repeating. So go ahead, repeat your treble crochet row and your single crochet row until you have your desired length. But what you have to do, if your hip size is way bigger, when you get to the hip area, switch to a bigger size hook and just work as long as you want, as long as you wish. So just switch up your hook when you get to your hip area if your hip size is extra big, but if your hip size is normal, just maintain 1 hook. So this is the work, and I made 24 rows in total, and this is what my work looks like. So at the end, this is what it looks like. I just made the blue yarn a lot at the end because I'm going to do the flare with the blue, so it has the same pattern. So as you can see, this is the reason why at the last end I didn't switch to my white. Now let's work the armhole. Now to work the armhole, you just have to calculate something before you start. If your work was the armhole is a multiple of 19, perfect. You are going to start your work right through. What I have is not in a multiples of 19, so this is what I'm going to do. And if it all depends on your rows, but I'm just going to show you how to do the armhole the way I did mine. So I counted, and it's not in a multiples of 19, but so chain 4, your chain 4 count as your first treble. Just attach your yarn and chain 4 and place 4 more treble crochets in the same stitch, so making it 5. Now we are going to start our individual trebles after your 5 treble crochets. And with the arms, because my arm is not in a multiples of 19. The stitches are a bit out of the way. I'm going to make 7 individual trebles instead of 9, which is the usual. I'm going to make 7 individual trebles. This is per my calculation. Yours can be different. So after my 7 individual treble, I'm going to go with my 2 cluster, and that's 5 treble crochets in each of the following 2 stitches. After my 2 cluster, now I'm going to make 9 individual trebles. So the first one was 7 individual trebles. Now I'm going to make 9 individual trebles and my 2 cluster, then I make 7 individual trebles to complete it. Depending on your stitch count, you can choose to make 8, 8, 8 or 7, 9, 7 if you had the same exact stitches as mine. So this is the middle. So where we slip stitch would automatically be our stitch. So we are going to skip and complete our 9 individual trebles, and just after the stitch we are going to make our cluster, and that's 5 treble crochets inside the same stitch, and in the next stitch we are going to make 5 treble crochets inside the same stitch. And after we are done with our cluster, now we are going to make 7 individual trebles instead of 9. So you can see I started with 7 individual trebles. Now I did 9 individual trebles, and now back to 7 individual trebles. At the end of the row, inside the last stitch, you are going to make your 5 cluster. So make 5 treble crochets, and you are going to slip stitch on top of your first chain 4, and you are going to chain 1, turn your work, and the row 2 is just a constant row. So we are going to make front loop only, and I'm making single crochet all around till the end of the row. So you will notice I've changed a hook. I'm using 4.5 hook for the arm because I don't want it too tight. However, if you want your hands too tight, you can maintain your 4.0 hook. And yeah, after you've done your single crochet rows, you're going to chain 4, turn your work, chain 4 count as your first treble, and inside the same stitch you're going to place 4 more treble crochets, making it 5. Now we are going to do our individual treble crochets. So inside the next stitch you place your first individual treble crochet. We are going to make 7 individual treble crochet for the start. Skip 1, place your second one, skip a stitch, place your third one, skip a stitch, place your 4th treble, 5th, 6th, 7th, and now you're going to make your cluster, and cluster is, so after your 7 individual trebles, you're going to make your cluster, and that is 5 treble crochets in the same stitch in the following 2 stitches. After you are done with your cluster, you are going to make 9 individual treble, make your cluster, 7 individual treble, and make your last cluster and slip stitch. In total, I made 60 rows, and this is what my work looks like. So I keep switching from my blue and white yarn, so just switch them as you wish and make your row, your desired row, and let's meet for the flare. So I made 3 rows of the flare, and this is what is looking like, and I'm going to show you I'm going to walk you through how to make your flare for the sleeves. So now I'm done with my 30 rows, and you are going to chain 4, count as your first treble. That row is never changing, it's constant. So in the first stitch, you're going to put your 4 treble crochets, making it 5. And now, after your 5 treble crochets, we are going to chain 2 and make your first treble in the next stitch. Chain 2, 3, and skip 1 and make your second treble. So we are making 7 treble, the same pattern. The only thing changing is we are making chains in between, so we are just chaining. If you want your flats very big, you consider making 3 or 4 chains in between, and if you want it small, just keep working 2 chain in between. But as you can see, I'm switching between 2 and 3 chains in between. You don't have to alternate chains if you don't want to. The bottom line is just choose, this is what you should follow. Either you make 2 chains in between, or 3 chains in between, or 4 chains, or 5 chains, but the pattern still remains the same. You're still going to make 7 individual trebles, and your cluster still remains your cluster space. The only thing changing is the chain, introducing the chain, right? So now when you get to your cluster space, you are still going to work your cluster. And also with the cluster space in the following 2 stitches, you are not going to chain. The clusters remain the same. So work your 5 treble crochets in the same stitch. In the next stitch, you are going to work your 5 trebles. Now after your 5 trebles, you are going to chain 2 or 3 or 4, and you are going to make your individual trebles. So I'm going to make my 9 individual treble and 7 individual trebles, and at the end of my row, you are going to slip stitch. I'll slip stitch and turn. Chain 1, turn your work, and you're going to make your single crochet back loop only at where your treble crochets are, and inside the chain spaces you are going to, so if you made 4 chains, you are going to make 4 single crochets inside the chain space. If you made 2 chains, you're going to make 2 single crochets, and inside the individual treble crochets you are still going to make back loop single crochets, and you're going to go around until the end of the row. At the end of the row, you're going to slip stitch and chain 4. Chain 4 counts as your first treble. You're going to turn your work, make 4 more trebles in the same stitch, making it 5, and that is your first cluster. And now the pattern will change a little. You're going to chain 2, and inside the first stitch you're going to make your first cluster. Now the cluster would be more than 7 because we are going to be skipping 1 and making a cluster. Skip 1, make a cluster until you get on top of your previous cluster. So make sure on top of your previous cluster you are going to build a cluster on top. So you are going to be chaining 3, skip a stitch, make a treble, chain 3, skip a stitch, make a treble until you are at the top. So I can just eyeball where exactly I have to place my 5 trebles. But if you make just a stitch mistake, I'm not sure it will be too obvious. Just make sure it's accurate and make your 5 treble crochets in the next 2 stitches, and you're going to keep making your individual treble with a chain 2, 3 or 4 in between, and skipping 1 of course. So just go round until the end of the row, and at the end of the row you are going to slip stitch at the top of your first chain 4 space, and the last row we are not going to be working our single crochet, but rather you're going to chain 4 and start your cluster. So inside the same stitch you are going to make 4 treble crochets, making it 5, and you are going to chain 2, 3 or 4, skip a stitch, make a treble crochet, chain 3, skip a stitch, make 3, skip a stitch. So we are going to be working in the middle of our previous chain. So make a treble crochet in the middle, chain 3, make a treble crochet in the chain space, make 3, and you're going to go ahead, and when you get to the cluster space, make sure you work on top of the cluster. At the end of the row you are going to slip stitch and work single crochet all around your work, and you are done. That is basically the pattern. If you understood this or you're having any difficulties, feel free, let me know what you think about this video under the comments section, and I'll be very glad to see you recreate this in many colors. And always tag us on our social media at atusiyahcrochets, and I would love to read your comments. Until we meet next week, don't forget to cut and fasten all loose ends and make this in different colors. Let's see the pictures of your own creations, and don't forget to tag us on our social media or our Instagram at atusiyahcrochets, and I would love, love to see how you made this magic. I would love to read your comment section. Don't forget to leave your comment down. And now to make the last row, which is optional, you're going to attach your yarn and work single crochet all around your work. So because I started with white, I attached my white yarn, and you're going to work single crochet all around your work. And where is 3 double crochets, where there's a treble, you make 3 single crochets, and you're going to work all around. So I made two rows of single crochet border. You can choose to make 1, you can choose to make 2 or 3. This is up to you. At the end of the row, you're going to slip stitch, chain 1, turn your work and make your second round, or third or fourth. It all depends on how you like it, and you are done. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, comment. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel up until this point, my love, my darling, my baby, why are you doing this? Please subscribe to the channel and share our videos. When you do that, it only encourages us to create more amazing videos. Until we meet next week, is bye-bye.